Anxiety and a PhD seems to go hand in hand. And that's because a PhD on the surface looks like it has been designed to introduce as much anxiety into your life as possible. There is a big looming thesis or peer-reviewed papers at the end. There is an unstructured nature. There is competition, there is comparison, there are expectations. All of these things essentially make a PhD an incredibly anxiety-inducing process. Now, the good thing is that many people survive, and I know that for me personally, my anxiety weirdly fluctuates, like almost, I'd say about daily. But during my PhD, I'd be like, oh my God, I can do this. And then it would sort of like crash, and I'd be like, what on earth am I doing? And the thing about anxiety is it's your mind projecting into the future. It's your mind trying to protect you from what has not happened yet and probably won't happen. So in a way, you're just kind of scared of fortune tellers. And your brain, kind of the worst fortune teller in the world, because it knows your inner kind of insecurities and fears. And so it will project those out and be like, well, you probably won't get your PhD because you're not clever enough. Or, well, what if something goes wrong? We shouldn't try that. Essentially, all of these things just keep you in this anxiety loop and circle. But I have worked out a few tricks that kind of can help overcome and break that vicious circle of anxiety, and I'm going to share them with you in this video. This video is brought to you by my newsletter at andrewstapleton.com.au/newsletter. I'll put a link in the description. I've just changed it so that you get 5 emails, each one with value. We've got tools, we've got a daily planner, we've got how to create an abstract, and other things that I can't even remember, but they are all valuable, I promise you. So sign up and you'll get that straight into your inbox. The first thing that anyone should do when they're trying to tackle anxiety is to understand that it is your brain projecting into the future, and therefore there are triggers around you that can make your brain go into panic mode. And so I like to kind of self-reflect, and whenever I get a wave of anxiety, or I'm sort of like trying to work out why I'm feeling a certain way, I stop. And that stopping, that first instance, is just so important because it breaks whatever thought pattern you're having and it causes you to reflect. And I like to write it down just on a scrap piece of paper. I've got a daily journal thing that I carry around with me. I thought I had a copy there. But the thing is that stopping, reflecting, and writing down these triggers will help you in the future. My triggers include comparison. My triggers also include not seeing the kind of linear line, or the line to get to a big goal, and so it just looks like I'm looking up the face of Mount Everest going, well, I couldn't possibly do it, and not realizing that there's a nice big old loop around the back to get me to the summit of my goals. So being overwhelmed is a trigger for me. Comparison, and also just not having a routine that allows me to put in small hourly steps that I can make visual and see progress. Those are the things that really kind of upset me and start me sort of on this weird anxiety spiral. So for you, as soon as you feel something, for a week, I highly recommend do this for a week. Stop. Write it down. What are you actually feeling? What are you projecting? What are you sort of like telling yourself? What's the narrative going on in your mind? And that's the first step to really sort of like breaking that anxiety spiral. A PhD and academia is inherently unstructured. There's no one there kind of going, do this, and then this, and then this, and you get a PhD. Up until your PhD or any research, before that, when you've been in university, there has been a structure. It has been super structured. Go to this lecture at this time, complete this exam, you will finish. But there is no structure, and therefore there's no way for you to see your progress. Now, what I highly recommend you do is you create your own structure and you make things highly visual. get a to-do list. So go on my newsletter. I give you a daily planner with a to-do list and sort of like the structured blocks for every single day to get you to your thesis. But that sort of thing is going to help you get to where you want to be and where you need to be, and make your progress visual so you can see it. Now, I have a kind of check sheet where if I need to do something with a project, and it can be on Asana or I think it's Tello or Trello, but essentially these Kanban boards where you move cards across. And so whatever big project I have, I always set up either a visual like Excel sheet, or I get a Asana Kanban board, and I move things across. I make it visual so I can see some form of progress. So for example, if you're writing a thesis, you would have each chapter as a card in your Kanban board, and you'd move it across from like draft, with supervisor, corrected, final copy, whatever, and you just kind of move it through until you say it has been done. That chapter has been done, and seeing everything move across that page is really important. Another thing you can do is get yourself 100 paper clips. Now, each one of those paper clips is going to sort of denote a thing that you want to achieve. So if it's, let's say, paper writing, then each 100 words, you're going to take a paper clip out and you're going to dump it into another kind of bowl. And seeing the paper clips move across will give you that motivation and get you on your right path. Now, the thing is that we often, as scientists, as researchers, as people doing a PhD, we often try to find information before we solve our problems. Now, there is a point where you've got to stop finding information and you've just got to like do the thing. So stop searching. That was one of my biggest things that causes anxiety. Is I would be anxious. I'd be like, right, how do I solve this? I'd go and I'd try to search for information. That information would quickly swell, make it way more overwhelming than as ever sort of like as it was before. So now I've got all this extra information to worry about, and there's a point where you just have to do. You just have to work. So if you're writing your thesis, if you're writing a paper, if you're preparing a conference presentation, just sort of like, set the foundations, understand what you've got to do, but then break yourself out of that habit of trying to find more information to make it perfect, and just do. The act of doing and refining will get you further down the path to success and away from your anxiety, rather than filling your mind with all of this information and just being like, oh, it's too much. Failure is a massive anxiety-inducing thing. And I actually like to normalize failure. So what I really recommend you do as part of your PhD is you set yourself time for failure. And that may sound a little bit strange, but you do it by looking at the schedule you've got or the things you want to achieve. And you actually go, you know what, I'm going to push that out a little bit. And I'm going to give myself, let's say, 20% of that time I'm going to fail. So I'm going to just push out the barrier by 20%, or I'm going to squeeze it in, but in there I'm going to fail more. So actually scheduling into your plan failure is a nice kind of thing for your brain, because then it acts as part of your to-do list. I have failed today. Tick. And your mind goes, well done, we're on the right path. Whereas if you fail and it's not in the plan, if it's not on your schedule, your mind goes, oh my God, time to freak out, this is not going to plan, we'll never finish. What happens if this happens all the time? Oh my God. So you stop that and you go, you know what? Failure is part of the plan. So when you're making your thesis schedule, when you're making your research plan, just put in failure. Like, couple times a week, you're going to fail, and head to the lab sometimes with the idea, or if you're not sort of science-based, if you're kind of social science or humanities-based, just put in an idea that you know that you'll kind of fail at, but if it kind of pays off, it'll be amazing. So go in, do that experiment, do that research, and if it fails, tick the failure box. Failure, love it. A PhD can be incredibly lonely. And so I think that working with others is one of the best ways to break yourself out of your own kind of bubble and actually share some of the load. And collaborations during your PhD is a way of beating anxiety. So just reach out to someone else in your lab or someone in another group that you've been speaking to, or go and find out what they're doing and just, think about how you can work together. What can their research bring to your research and vice versa? Because working with other people opens up doors, opens up communication, open up pathways to just being open. And you'll be surprised that when you're in your lab, when you're doing your research and your head down, you're doing stuff, it can just be incredibly overwhelming. And that's when, given the freedom of just being alone, your mind starts wandering and starts doing things. But working with other people was my way of really trying to break that cycle and include collaboration and being more of a people person, which I am, into my everyday life. So work with people, that'll open up communications. You'll be amazed that they're probably going through exactly the same thing as you are, and they'll be so thankful just, to work for a 6-month project on something together as a little side project that may turn into something, but, put it in your failure blocks of time if you need to, but go out, collaborate, speak to people, work on something, and through that process, you'll get closer and you'll understand each other's kind of thoughts and anxieties, and a problem shared is a problem halved. Sometimes anxiety from a PhD has nothing to do with the actual research you are doing. It can be due to your finances, your social work, your family commitments, the fact you've got children, all of these things can cause anxiety. And once again, it's your mind just projecting into the future and just sort of causing this tumbled mess. And your PhD starts getting interwoven with all of those issues. And look, there's no single silver bullet to tackle all of these for each individual, but identifying what you're actually anxious about. It may not be your PhD, it may be your finances, it may be your family issues, it may be something else. So focus on that first. Write down all of the thought process. And then one thing I like to do, and I got from a book, it was called The Power of Small, is write down what you're thinking, all of your anxieties, and then go through and cross out what isn't factually true, i.e. what is not your brain projecting into the future. And once you get down to the facts, you'll often find that it's actually a pretty boring kind of reason why you're feeling this way. And so you can use that tool to approach any anxiety from any part of your life, whether it's PhD or otherwise. But sometimes anxiety in a PhD has nothing to do with the actual research. It's something else outside. So use that technique. There we have it. That's everything you need to know to beat PhD anxiety. Now go check out academiainsider.com. That is where I host my new ebook, where I've got the insider community, where we've got a bunch of academics helping each other to become better. And it's a fantastic place to find out more. And also, a PhD is an incredibly stressful, lonely, confusing time. You deserve better than that. So go check out academiainsider.com, where you'll find tools to help you no matter what you're going through.